It's time to create your 10-year moonshot. A moonshot is a bold, inspiring, long-term goal that stretches your team's vision and fuels your mission. The concept of establishing a moonshot goal comes from the speech former President Kennedy delivered to Congress in 1961 when he said this:
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth.
What I want us to focus on right now is the fact that many people would have perceived this statement as absolutely ludicrous. And here's why. The technology didn't even exist at this time in which President Kennedy said this statement. And we didn't even know the math of how we were going to effectively get the spaceship to the moon, on the moon, and back safely to Earth. What's important for us to recognize about this 10-year moonshot statement is the fact that it is what we would call a SMART goal. S, specific, M, measurable, A, ambitious, R, realistic, and T, time-bound. This statement is specific in that we can tell exactly what success looks like because of the way it's stated. He painted it done. He didn't say, we're going to go somewhere out in outer space, or maybe we'll get close to the moon. Not only did he say we'd land a man on the moon, but he clarified that success meant returning that spaceship with everyone in it safely to Earth. The statement is measurable in that we know the exact moment in time in which the mission is either achieved or not achieved. We've already talked about how ambitious the statement was, and this next piece is so critical in that it was also realistic. If President Kennedy would have said, we're going to land a man on Mars and return him safely to Earth, that would have been impossible at the time. We could probably make a goal like that right now, but if he would have said, we're going to put someone on the sun and bring them back safely to Earth, I'm pretty sure that's impossible. Maybe someone will prove me wrong one day. That would be kind of cool. All right, the final piece is that the statement was time-bound. He said before the decade is out, it will be achieved, and that is exactly what happened. We accomplished this mission as a country in 1969. When it comes to strategic planning in the nonprofit sector, one of the more common practices I've seen is setting aspirational goals for the future. And I believe that's not only unproductive, but in some cases, it's actually harmful. Maybe you've heard something to this effect where a nonprofit might say, we envision a world whereby no child anywhere on the planet is hungry by the year 2030. Here's the problem with that statement. If that organization doesn't actually have a realistic plan to achieve that extremely ambitious statement, then they're telling their staff members that they're going to ask them to do things that they're not actually going to hold them accountable to. And they're telling their donors they're just blowing smoke up their you-know-what, just trying to make them feel good and ask for money. And so when you're setting your moonshot, it's essential that it's extremely ambitious and realistic. Something that 10 years from now, once you achieve it, you're going to look back and not only say, wow, we did it. You're going to say, I know exactly how we did it. And I remember the plan we made and the steps that we put into place. So you might be wondering right now, what happens if your organization's current CEO isn't sure she or he plans to continue in this role 10 years from now? Regardless of who may lead your organization in the future, if the organization's still around in 10 years, which I hope it is, what will it have accomplished? You can begin to answer that question with confidence and conviction as soon as you have a clear and compelling vision and strategy for the future. Even if your CEO intends to stay at your organization for only the next 3 to 5 years, what your team envisions today and what you do together during these next few years will determine what can be achieved when they're gone. As we end this section, it's important for everyone to understand not only are we going to create a 10-year moonshot, but we're going to break it down to what it looks like 3 years from now for us to be on track. Just like the United States worked backwards from their original 10-year moonshot. The technology didn't exist. But what did they do? They created the technology that eventually created the technology they needed to achieve the mission. Or they created the incremental math. They learned it so that they could then learn the definitive math to achieve the mission. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at, as an organization, not only where do we need to be 3 years from now, but where do we need to be 1 year from now and even 90 days from now, so that eventually every team member throughout your entire organization will have 3 to 7 quarterly priorities every 90 days that directly tie into the strategic plan. So may your 10-year moonshot be smart so that your organization can go to the next level and all the other levels after that. Check out these moonshots developed by some of the remarkable teams we coach.